All right. Karla, welcome so much to the show. I'm so excited to be talking with you today.
Thank you, you too.
This is going to be a great conversation. There are a few of us who really enjoy talking about anxiety. There are many, many, many people out there who don't, but you and I are just going to have a good time talking about anxiety today. I'm really looking forward to it. And the listeners, of course, we all kind of come here to hang out in this cozy corner of the internet to learn and support ourselves. And there's a lot of information, of course, out there about anxiety. It's I don't know if it's cool, but it's pretty popular to talk about. It's not something that's a secret or things, people haven't considered or explored. You have a lot of new ways of talking about it though, and I want to hit on some really important ideas, I think, for how we can reframe anxiety. And I wanted to start by asking you about dynamic emotional integration, which comes up a lot, of course, in your writing and in your work. Tell us a little bit about that concept.
Dynamic emotional integration is my applied work, and it comes from my books, Language of Emotions, The Art of Empathy, Embracing Anxiety, The Power of Emotions at Work. It sort of encapsulates all of them. And what it is treating emotions as aspects of cognition and not as the opposite of anything. Most of us learn that emotions are the opposite of logic, which is untrue. The emotions are a crucial aspect of everything you do and everything you think and every action you take. So understanding them means you can begin to understand yourself and what's going on around you and what's going on within you. So not having a language for emotions is really a problem, as we all learn, right? When we come up against an emotion. So this is learning the language of emotions, learning how to work directly with them instead of the way most of us learn, which is how to sort of avoid them. Explain them, repress them, overexpress them, right? But never work with them. So that's dynamic because emotions are dynamic. They change like every second. Emotional, yes. And integration is to integrate your emotions with your logic and your rationality. They already are, but we've been taught that they aren't. So that you live an emotionally integrated life and you understand yourself and you understand other people. So your emotions don't sort of knock you over. Sometimes they need to because you're misbehaving, but
yeah.
Sometimes your emotions like, you stop that right now. Like, oh. But to have emotions as part of your skill set and your tool set for how to live a whole and conscious life, they're awesome for that. And it's interesting, we've been chased away from them so aggressively. Like we are chased away from our emotions all the time. Oh, don't be afraid. Come on. Or, don't cry. Don't cry. Nobody needs to be this angry about anything. Like you hear it all the time.
Yes.
Come on, be happy.
Oh, yeah. That's a fun one, right? That cheer up, chasing toward, you're exactly right, that chasing away from, and this is actually where I wanted to head next, this positive, negative. So there's some good emotions that we should feel all the time.
All the time.
Pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Right? And anything bad, it's okay. I imagine this is something I tried really hard. I've got two boys that are 12 and 15. And I've tried really hard, and I'm gobsmacked at, even when we're aware of it, it's so ingrained in our vocabulary that to remember to overcome some of this is tricky. When one of them, particularly when they were little, of course, and they would be crying about something, instead of asking what's wrong, with the implication that, okay, you're crying, so something bad must have happened.
Yeah.
Instead of asking what's wrong, kind of in the face of any emotion, to say what's happening, right? to open that up to, this doesn't have to be a negative thing. Maybe you're crying for a great reason. We cry for all kinds of reasons. It doesn't have to be, but it's so, you're right. It's so baked into our conversation, our dialogue, our culture. Uh-oh, somebody's crying. Something bad must have happened. Right. So
Yeah.
let's talk about this valencing of, and, you know, we could toss in anxiety to this a little bit, maybe.
Oh, anxiety. Oh, anxiety. We love this emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so valencing is an idea that's really useful in some cases. For instance, with numbers, they're valenced as even or odd. You know, you need to know when emotions are even and odd because that's all they can be. So it's really an important thing to valence emotions. You also valence in chemistry. Things are positive or negatively charged. And you need to know that when you're doing chemical experiments, right? You need to understand the valence. But emotions got valenced, and they got valenced pretty aggressively. So the happiness-based emotions, come on, be happy, have joy, you know, feel good about yourself at all times, no matter what you're doing. Those are the only positive emotions, those 3 emotions, but there's 17 emotions. The rest of them are negative, and many of them are hated, mistrusted, despised, jealousy and envy. I think envy is one of the 7 deadly sins in the Catholic tradition.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of hatred put onto a poor human emotion.
No
Um,
kidding.
but if you look at the numbers, I think we're taught to want 16% of our emotions, or something like that. And 84% we're taught, yeah, you don't want those.
That is some
So
tricky math.
yeah, that's some bad math. They're both even numbers, but, but
That.
basically, if you remember being graded at school, 50% was an F, right? So we know 16% of our emotions, we have to work really hard to make it up to an F. Our emotions, right?
Yeah.
We are failing so hard with our emotions if we only feel comfortable feeling those 3. And what happens is those 3 emotions get very overworked.
Mm.
So you're like, I'm just going to put on a happy face, right? And your happiness goes, I was trying to get a nap in. Okay, can you let any of the other emotions please come and deal with this right now? Like perhaps sadness, so you could let go of this idea. But basically, all of the rest of the emotions are just pushed out to the side. So here we have the 3 happiness-based emotions, and that's it. That's all that's allowed. Maybe you can cry sometimes, right? Maybe
Yeah.
you can show sadness sometimes, but not if you're a man,
Mm-hmm.
not if you're tough.
Mm-hmm.
We let women cry, but we don't respect them for crying,
Right.
right? Like I think,
Right.
was it, who is Elizabeth? I can't remember her last name. She's a politician. She ran for president. Elizabeth
Warren?
Warren. Yes.
Yeah.
And she cried on stage
Oh, yeah. Oh,
because she felt sad. And then people went, so women get to cry, but they don't get to be respected for crying. Yeah, and men do not get to cry.
right.
Uh, so there's emotions that, oh, women aren't allowed to feel anger or
Right.
express it. There will be, you know, you're no longer a lady. Men can express anger. So it's very gendered in
Mm-hmm.
the so-called negative emotions. But another thing is, if I say an emotion is positive and you don't regularly feel it, like you don't have a lot to feel happy about, what else are you going to feel? You'll probably feel some shame, some anger at yourself, some sadness, maybe some depression. So just saying an emotion is positive can create this whole pileup of emotions, right? And if I say an emotion is negative, like anger, and you feel it a lot, what else are you going to feel? Ashamed, you know, sad, embarrassed, that sort of thing. You're going to feel a lot of emotions about the fact that you feel anger. So the idea of valencing emotions is one of the worst ideas ever. And it makes us emotionally incompetent, and it makes us suffer for no reason.
Right. Right. It's, well, and where we think about anxiety, I have talked with thousands of people over the years at this point, particularly about anxiety, panic, stress, worry, overwhelm, that family
Yeah.
of emotional experiences, which are some of the most common
Yes.
emotional experiences in life and across the board. I mean, nobody's ever come to me and been like, I think I'm okay. I'm wildly anxious and I think things are going fine. That's just not our cultural story
Yeah.
about anxiety. So across the board, it's I'm feeling anxious and that's a problem and we need to fix it,
Yeah.
is how most of those conversations start.
How can this stop?
Right,
How can we stop this?
right.
And yeah. And if your emotions are parts of your cognition and your ability to function in the world, why would you want to stop one of them? Right?
Yes.
It has work to do. And so that for me is that emotional integration piece is now my anxiety and I are partners. And in, I can say, anxiety, what are you focused on right now and how can I help you? Rather than, anxiety. I just need to feel happy. I just want to feel happy. And
Yes.
happiness is like, I don't have anything for you right now, pal. It's anxiety's turn. It's helping you.
I
Yeah.
love the idea, to go back to what you said a few moments ago, of giving happiness a break. Like maybe we could let happiness take a nap or a week.
Yeah, like nappiness. You can call it nappiness.
And we could just go in on something else. I mean, like you said, they're dynamic, they're cycling through. So if we're paying attention, something else I hear a lot from people, I feel anxious all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes and no.
Yeah.
Probably not, right? Because they are emotions by nature, by the virtue of the fact that we're alive and experiencing and moving and doing things. We're experiencing a whole bunch of emotions, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. So we're not anxious all the time. But what if it were okay that we were any and every emotion sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the appropriate time. If somebody steps across your boundaries and isn't being, I
Yeah.
want to see some anger right up in there. How you
Yes.
manage it is your own thing, and you can probably use different techniques. But if there's a whole bunch going on and there's deadlines coming and there's tasks that aren't finished, I want to see your anxiety, right?
Yeah.
We need to see that, but how do you work with it so that you're not just overwhelmed, right?
Right.
Yeah, like how do you work with your emotions, not against them or
And
for
this,
them?
right,
Yeah.
this is a really different conversation to have where anxiety is concerned. So what I told you of how, people approach me and it's like, okay, I've got this problem, which is anxiety. So we're going to need to fix that so we can stop feeling that so we can feel more happy.
Yay.
More of that, more good, please. Right. But what you, and, and I've talked with executives, ER doctors, lawyers, people who are in, particularly professions that feel, I've also had this sense of, well, if you take my anxiety away from me, Kelly, you're going to take my edge away from me. And I've always thought that's fascinating because kinda,
Yeah.
right? There is this, if we can work with anxiety, if we're not so fixated on eliminating it from our experience and our just our repertoire of what we're cycling through in this dynamic emotional integration of our life,
Yeah.
then we can harness anxiety. And when it shows up, because I don't know about you, if I go to the ER, I don't want a doctor who's super chill.
It could be a heart attack or it could be anything.
You know, I don't need them overwhelmed. I don't need
Yeah.
them not able to function. So I'd
Yeah.
like them to work with their anxiety, but a little bit of like, let's figure this out real
I
quick.
want them to be like, let's get on it, pal.
That'd be great. That'd be great. So again, and I feel like we could say this thousands of times because I feel like we need to hear what we need to hear over and over and over and over again to really practice with it and let it sink in. But learning to work with anxiety. So you brought up in the book Embracing Anxiety early on. I think you pronounce her name. Is it Dr. Mary Lamia?
Yay.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Um,
Mary Lemmy.
of this, like there's procrastinator anxiety and there's do it aheader anxiety. You and I are very similar in this way. We're both like
Do it a header.
noxious do it aheaders. You brought up an example in the book of something that you had done a year ahead of time. But I was like, yep, that's I can relate to that.
Why not? You know, why not? I've become better at procrastinating. I'm always going to speak it with an accent, right? It's never going to be my normal language, but I can do it now.
And do you have an appreciation for how that functions in your life in a really motivating, mobilizing way?
Yeah. And
Right.
I was just going to bring her up. Dr. Mary Lamia identifies anxiety as the emotion of motivation.
Yes.
So you're not only going to lose your edge if you don't have anxiety, you're going to lose your ability to get things started, done, or finished or scheduled. You don't want to lose this emotion, but you do want to learn how to work with it. It's a crucial emotion of motivation. And yeah, pretty much if you want to get something done, if you want to get her done, you need your anxiety.
Yeah.
And to work with you, because we've all had an experience. Anxiety is a very forward leaning, energetic emotion because it's got a job to do in the future, right? So if you don't know that, the forward leaning can basically unground you, and the energy can, knock you sideways.
Yeah.
It is like, it's a motorcycle that really takes off quickly. And
Mhm.
if you thought you're on a bike, your motorcycle's going without you and you're on your butt, okay, in the street, going, I hate anxiety. And I'm like, but it's not a bike, okay?
Right. Yeah. We're not on a tricycle tootling around the neighborhood.
And there's no the little wheels, the little training wheels. You don't have that on your anxiety.
Yes. But the
Yeah,
fact of working with it, using it as a motivating emotion.
yeah,
I've joked, not joked over the years about how any like deep cleaning, um, like like extra long power walking, like that's gonna get done when I have an abundance and like overflow of anxious energy.
yeah.
Because it's a good place to channel some of that stuff, right? Without that, I'm on the couch with a book,
I know.
which is fine too, right? I mean, you used the word earlier of appropriateness, and I think this is, I know we're to again speak in circles a little bit here. If we're going towards only happy, good, um, amazing feeling emotions, we get a little pathological because we lose our appropriateness with life.
Yeah,
Then when something sad happens, or like you said, when a boundary gets violated, and we could really use the appropriate activating anger to say, whoa, I need to advocate for myself here. Instead, if we're supposed to feel happy, then something sad happens and we need to get to happy. Or somebody violates a boundary of ours and we need to get back to happy. And it doesn't make any sense when
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's not a way to live your life.
yeah. But it's the way most of us have been taught to live our lives.
For sure.
We're gonna get talked into it. We're gonna get talked into, yeah, forget your troubles, come on, get happy. And everybody cheer up, and don't worry, be happy. I mean, we get the messages all the time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us, when we feel deeper emotions, we just go interior because there's nobody to talk to.
Right.
There's nobody to talk to, or we just sort of leave our experience either with
Yeah.
distractions or addictions or anything that's not here. Right. And so that for a lot of us, there's not a conversation happening between us and our emotions.
Yeah.
It's sort of our emotions just hoping that someone's going to listen, maybe ever,
Yeah.
and being dissociated from them. And it's hard to live that way, but I think we get told probably 300 to 300 times a day to ignore our emotions. You're gonna hear it. You're gonna hear it. Or
Yeah.
to go and basically be abusive toward the happiness emotions by forcing them to come out when it's entirely inappropriate for them to do that. And
Yeah.
I found when I let my happiness go, it was like free, set them free. They came more often after that period where I had to deal with my depression, suicidal urge, and all the really deep emotions that I had learned to pretend I wasn't feeling. And now I laugh all the time, inappropriately often.
It's so
Like,
counterintuitive.
but I feel all my emotions like that now, right? Oh, that was jealousy? Huh. I need to look at why, and then my shame will go, nicely done. And then my contentment will go, yes, it was. And my happiness is, yeah. It's like this constant movement, like a kaleidoscope,
Yes.
instead of the way it was before, which is like a lot of huge darkness over here of all that supposedly negative emotions. And then me holding on to happiness like some kind of haunted clown. I'm happy.
And it is that kind of facade, really. It's kind of creepy.
Creepy haunted clown.
And it's very fake.
Yes.
I mean, it's very inauthentic to
Yeah.
be clinging so tightly to a facade of,
Yeah. I'm feeling the socially appropriate emotions and I don't care what happens to my soul. Because I'm accepted. And there's importance in being acceptable in this world, but not if you're going to actually wound your entire psyche behind it.
right, not at the expense of. And there are ways to do this, right? We can show up at a dinner and kind of get through the evening without selling our soul out,
Yeah.
and still say to our partner or even say to the host, like, not a great night and we're going to do this. And I had to leave some of my emotions at home and we're
Yeah.
just going to eat dinner and we're going to get through it. It's all going to be fine. Everything's as it totally should be. And it just is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
Right? There's ways we can do this. I have this working hypothesis that the opposite of anxiety is honesty, and that when we're kind of talking about anxiety, this is kind of for that like unhealthy when you're squeezed by life anxiety, where you go and you kind of like freak out because you're not integrating your emotions and living with them, right? When we're living more in resistance or avoidance, one of the quickest, like most direct ways in towards authenticity I have found is honesty.
Yeah.
If I can just say right now, it's like this.
Yeah.
There's a sense of, I mean, it's just what you said earlier of like, okay, I don't have to feel happy. It's okay. Go, happiness. You're free.
I'd be free.
Bye-bye. Come back whenever you're ready.
I'll be nappiness.
Yeah, you go be nappiness for as long as you need, because I know I've been abusing you.
Yeah.
Right? There's a counterintuitive nature that if we're not resisting the quote unquote negative, and if we're not clinging on to the quote unquote positive, that it's all gonna fall apart. And it's the opposite.
Yeah.
If we can get honest about how we're feeling, then healthy anxiety, right? Healthy anger, healthy sadness, shame, all of that is welcome in. And when happiness shows up, we're like, oh, hey.
Oh, You're one of
Cool.
my 17 friends.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
you weren't the one we were waiting for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a prize at a fair or something. Like,
Right.
no, it's a human emotion. Stop being weird. Okay. You're
Stop.
being weird. like pursuit of happiness. I'm like,
Oh
it's a
gosh.
human emotion that lives inside you. Where are you going? What are you running after? I don't even understand what you're doing.
Right. What is the pursuit?
Yeah.
From what to where? Yes.
Where you going, pal? Where are you going?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe the journey's not that far. Maybe just don't. Right?
You save a lot of money. You save a lot of money on that awesome thing you need, and then you'll feel happy.
Oh gosh.
You won't.
Over and over. No, I promise not. No. Um, okay, you talk about 4 keys to emotional genius. And this, I mean, we've kind of we've been talking about this first one, right? There are no negative emotions and there are no positive emotions either.
Single one, not a single one. Yeah, that's the first one, because if you're still balancing emotions, it's going to be very, very hard to work with them. It's going to be so hard
Right.
because you're going to have that terrible messaging in the way. And you'll be like, okay, so I'm going to deal with my sadness, but then I can have happiness, right? I'm like, oh, fail. Nope. You just be with your emotions. The second key, and I move the keys around depending on what I'm writing, but it is to understand intensity, that your emotions don't just show up as angry or sad. You'd be a very bad actor if that were true. Or fear. That emotions arise in many different levels of intensity,
Yes.
and you can learn through vocabulary how to open up and create a more granular emotional vocabulary. And all by itself, developing a better emotional vocabulary will give you better emotion regulation skills with no other intervention whatsoever.
Mhm.
Just developing a better vocabulary. And I found this out after I made an emotional vocabulary list in like 2012. And
Uh-huh.
it was drawn from people on my website, people on Facebook. We created this list. And now it's free on my website, because everybody needs to have a better and more comfortable emotional vocabulary, right? But I also have these little
Yes.
pocket ones. um, but knowing where you are in the range of soft, medium to intense can really help you, especially with an emotion that for some reason, probably bad training, goes to 11 all the time. So a lot of people, when anger shows up, where's anger? They're in the intense thing. So they're livid, they're irate, they're raging, they're ranting, which means they're in the intense part of anger, right? The
Yes.
darker one.
Yeah.
If they can learn to look at the soft aspects of anger, they can catch their anger when it is in the 0 to 3, 4 range, right?
Yeah.
Learn to work with it there. I'm not saying they should never go to 11 again, but most of us can't handle anger 11 or panic 11 or
Yeah.
jealousy 11, right? So knowing vocabulary, you can begin to see when you are displeased. This is in the soft anger. When you are protective, when you are self-assured, that's anger.
Yeah.
Yep. When you're annoyed, when you're ambivalent. So you can begin to track your anger and develop skills and relationship with it. Then if it needs to go to 11, you know what the heck's going on. But if you go to 11 every time you're angry, you're going to be an explosive person, right?
Yes.
You're going to miss the points at which people were stepping over your boundaries. And you're
Yeah.
going to wait and wait and wait and wait. And then you're probably going to say, you deserved it because you stepped over my boundaries for the last 17 years. And now I'm going to tell you the truth, you know?
Now. Yes.
So yeah, grabbing your emotions when they're at their softer is a great way to learn to work with them. Because then you can work with them. They're not overtaking your entire psyche.
So the
That's the second one.
intensity,
Yeah.
right. And just one more note on that. I think my guess is this is maybe tricky for some of us because although a softer emotion would be easier to work with. It's also easier to ignore.
Yeah, and a lot of the ways that emotions come up in their soft place, we don't even identify it as an emotion.
Yes.
We don't even know an emotion is happening. So when I am doing very well, my tasks are managed, I'm hitting my deadlines, I'm feeling calm, anxiety's there, right? I'm doing everything I need to do, and my life is manageable.
Yes.
Now, when things become unmanageable, I'm going to have a much higher presentation of anxiety. And then I'm going to say, now I'm anxious. I'm always like, no, you were anxious and handling it very beautifully when there wasn't too much placed on you.
Yeah.
Right. Anxiety is also a sign that your workplace is not being well managed.
Yeah.
Right. That whoever's loading you up is not very good at their job. And if it's you, then you need to have a talk with yourself. Like, I need a better manager, and you're fired. You are so fired right now.
Right here, my business owners are all going, uh-oh.
I mean, I'm a business owner and I have 4 businesses, and that's how kooky I am. But I call it the anxiety train. I'll get on the anxiety train, and all of a sudden I'm no longer a human. I am shoveling the anxiety train. I'm not even driving it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shoveling people. And that's times when my other emotions have to step in and go, hold on, this is
Right.
out of control. Because anxiety will just go.
Yes.
That's its job. It
Yes.
goes. And one of the emotions that's really important when you're on the anxiety train is depression.
Yeah.
Because it will pull your energy down so that you can't do that to yourself anymore. But then people are like, depressed, another negative emotion.
Right.
Am I anxious or am I depressed? I'm like, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you are both.
Yes.
Because they need to balance each other. It's
And
gotten
you
out of,
need both.
yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we got off on a little track there. So the second one was intensity.
Second one was intensity, understand intensity. The
Yep.
third is understand that emotion, it's normal for emotions to arise together and to work together.
I feel like we could take so much time with each one of these because I think each one of them is like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right. So this is not a black and white, all or nothing. You're all in on one emotion. Our emotions arrive in pairs, in groups, in clusters,
Yeah.
as they should.
And because they're all aspects of cognition, which means they make you smarter, I'm like, the more the merrier, right? And if you
Yeah.
have your vocab list, you can say, okay, I'm feeling some soft shame. I'm feeling a little bit of medium fear. I'm feeling some medium confusion, right? About the same thing.
Right.
Having more words will help you identify more emotions. So it won't just be happiness. One of the problems with multiple emotions is the English language only has 4 words to describe the way that emotions work naturally and normally. So English really kind of knocks us off our feet and makes us fall flat on our faces in terms of because if vocabulary is so important to
Yeah.
emotion regulation, we have 4 words.
Yeah.
It's no
Right.
good. And one of them's a flavor. It's bittersweet.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. You don't get that as an emotion word, English.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
words matter.
they
And we
do.
are naturally limited by the container of language that we're in.
That doesn't even see them. That doesn't even see them. So we actually make up words like panger for panic plus anger,
Yes.
or anxappiness, which is
Yep.
anxiety and happiness.
And when you hear that, I feel like as I was reading through your book, it was like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that feels like.
Yeah.
It's not a leap to make in my mind that I was like, say more, Karla. Like you know exactly what it feels like to be motivated by anxiety and to have this happiness about a project that you're almost done with, that you're so excited about. You know exactly what that feels like.
Or anxiety, which I'll get like when I'm so focused on a thing and someone comes in and says, can I ask you a question? No, because I'm on the train.
Yes. Yes. Right. So of
Yeah,
course they work together. And I love that you just invented a whole bunch of different words
they're
to
silly.
bring, like, here's some popular duos. Let's bring them together.
Yeah. And we talk about anxiety a lot in the book, which is panic plus anxiety.
Yes.
And I think I said in the book when I was researching it, I talked to everybody to a person was describing panic when I asked them about anxiety.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody. And so I'm like, those anxiety is like, here's panic, here's anxiety. And for a lot of people, they cannot get them apart. There's no separating them. And
Yeah.
so I began to understand why people hate anxiety so much.
Sure.
It's because panic's there, and you shouldn't hate either emotion, but those are two powerhouse emotions that are going to drive you and keep you up at night and constantly talk to you about danger and dread. And who wants to hear that? Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. You are a downer, you two
Yeah.
emotions. So a lot of the work with anxiety is, these are multiple emotions. They're two emotions, is getting them to separate a little bit and to ask, because they're two very different emotions and they have different practices, different
Yeah.
questions, different gifts. To ask panic, am I literally in danger of losing my life right now? And panic will kind of step back and say, not right now, but if you don't get these tasks done, if you don't hit your deadline, your job is in danger.
Right.
Which means your life is in danger. So I'm like, so you're looking way out at the end, right? So
Right.
let anxiety have some free space here, panic.
Yeah.
I appreciate your life-saving energy, okay? But it's anxiety and I that need to work and get
Yeah.
this done. Or decide this job is absurd if they want me to finish this by the 12th, right? They're out of their minds. And they're trying to make one person do three people's job, right? Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if panic is there and you're just like, I'm gonna die,
Yeah.
it's not going to be very easy to manage those
Right.
emotions. You say if there's dread or danger in your anxiety, panic is there trying to help.
Yeah. It's such a good litmus test. And that's a really quick way to suss out
Yeah.
what are we dealing with here?
Yeah. Is this anxiety or is it panxiety? It's panxiety. Okay, then what do
Yeah.
you do? Right.
Right.
You make sure that you're physically safe and then panic can stand down a little bit and help you think more clearly.
And as
Yeah.
soon as you can look at it and name it and discern what all is there hanging out, then yeah, you can lean towards the emotion that you need in the moment.
Mhm.
I always picture like this car, this or this van, I don't know, of emotions. And it's like, okay, panic, maybe you need to take the third row. You're still here with us. We don't want to toss you out on the side of the
Yeah.
road. We need you here with us, but we don't need you driving. We don't
Yeah.
need you navigating. We don't need you operating the radio right now. Like, we
You
got
can
you.
oversee. You can oversee from the back.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
I never don't want panic to be watching out for my life, right? I never
absolutely.
don't want panic. That was a double negative. But yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
maybe I don't want you out all the time thinking that everything's going to kill me.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Which is a practice, getting more aware, using the right vocabulary, sussing out which is which, and then maybe booting booting one a little bit further back in the van.
That each emotion has a specific job or there wouldn't be 17 of them, right?
Right.
That these emotions have a thing to do. And if you understand what the thing is, then you can do the fourth key of emotional
Yes.
genius, which is channel them, not
Yes.
repress them, where you lose your consciousness and your awareness and the emotions gifts, or to express the heck out of them and just throw them all over the place. You
Right.
also lose their gifts. It's to understand anger is about boundaries, so reset a boundary. Anxiety is about tasks and deadlines, so meet your tasks and deadlines. Panic
Right.
is about saving your life, so check it out. Are you in physical danger? Right? That's the way to channel the emotion because you understand what it's trying to do. And a lot of us would be like, panic, get rid of that. You've not channeled that emotion.
Yeah.
It's probably going to come back stronger next time because you're in danger.
Yeah.
Anxiety, I hate that feeling. Push that emotion away, repress it.
Yeah.
Now you've got tasks and deadlines and no motivation
Right.
and
Right.
no one to help you oversee
Yeah.
the situation, right? Anger. I just want to be peaceful. Right now, everybody's going to break your boundaries because there's literally nothing there.
Mhm.
We've
Mhm.
all had that experience,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
and yeah, not saying no the first time and the next time, like, well, I guess they liked what I did that time because they didn't say anything. Like, oh no.
Right.
Yeah.
This is so in um there's this undercurrent of mindfulness that I'm always teaching and working with my students, and we talk a lot about responding versus reacting
Yes.
and being able to pause and mindfully respond, whether that's in conversation, whether that's just with yourself in your
Yeah.
own emotional experience. And okay, now what? From here, how am I feeling? What's happening?
Yeah.
Where am I at now? What? But being able to pause and mindfully respond, which is that channeling,
Yeah.
versus the reactive or overreactive, which is where we start expressing or repressing,
Yeah.
almost as a knee-jerk reaction to, like you were saying, I don't like this, I want to feel something else.
Yes.
Or not this, I don't want to be this person, I got to go over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that because with reacting, you are not engaging with the emotion.
No.
No, you're just slapping it away or slapping it back or throwing it at people. With responding, you and the emotion are having a conversation and a
Yes.
relationship. Right?
Yes.
And I think it's the same with people. If I just react to people like, shut up, or I don't care about you, talk to the hand, I am not having a relationship.
No.
But if I'm responding and I say, what you said just hurt me, and here's
Yeah.
how can we change that in the future? Right? Then we're having a deeper relationship. But if I'm just talking to the hand or being slappy, they're not meeting me, they're meeting my lack of emotional skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, again, pretty much all of my students, this is something we're talking about is relationships. And we talk a lot about parenting depending on the age of our children. Of course, this can be very different with regards to kids, but especially with our partners, our friends, our extended family members, with the adults in our lives. Being able, and something I've kind of started doing as a physical pause for myself if I'm in conversation and something's, because I think conversation in real time happens real fast. And sometimes I'm like, hang on. And I literally put my hands up and I'm like, hang on. Like I'm feeling something. And it's me basically being like, time out. I need a second to see what's happening here so that I can ask the right question, so that I can respond.
Yeah.
Because if I don't pause us, I'm going to react. You're going to react to my reaction. And we're just going to go down we're going to tumble down a hill. We don't even need to start. Right.
Yes.
Right. So just being able to say, okay, wait,
Yeah.
I'm feeling something. Give me a second. You said this. Here's
Look at my
what,
list.
right. Literally. This is, I know some of, I tell my people all the time, I know some of it sounds, I don't nerdy or like overly earnest, but it's like, this stuff works.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to, and if you can remember to remember, we talk a lot about that, remember to remember, which just takes practice. So do this when you're in those softer emotions. Do this when you think, I have a lot of people too that are like, I think I'm good now. Like the implication is, I think I can turn my attention elsewhere. I think this anxiety thing is under control. To which I'm like, okay. But we're still in this dynamic emotional integration of life.
Yeah.
That's the practice. That's the work. We were never here to get rid of anything or to fix anything. We're skillfully practicing how to be with all of it. So being able to pull out a list of emotions, being able to pause and just say, hang on, I'm feeling something. Right? Or even hang on, I need to come back to this conversation later when I can respond because I'm noticing I'm feeling reactive and I'm going to start either expressing or repressing. That's what we've just talked about here. I'd like to channel this. Maybe you're saying this in your head, right? I'd like to channel this in a more productive and helpful and connecting way, a loving way,
Yeah.
rather than just batting you away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is easy for us to sit here and talk about.
Well,
It
I
can be,
find it kind of starts from within, like learning how to work with my emotions in that way gave me the ability to work with people in that way.
yes,
Right.
yes. So being able to do the work in your own mind, in your own heart,
Yeah.
then there's this outflow to the
Yeah.
other people in your life.
Yeah. And then I also have this pretty big internal monologue where, I'll be like, okay, so he's showing me a lot of anger right now, which means he's dealing with some pretty severe boundary violations, right? Instead of he's a jerk. Right? So what do I do in the presence of people? All right, so I'm going to set my boundaries and step back a little bit so I'm not an irritant in his boundary list state, right? And then ground myself in the way you would when you come across a wild animal in the forest. That kind of, you chill out your whole being so the animal doesn't see you as a threat. I was like, okay, I need to show myself out and then give him space instead of like getting up in his face. You need to calm down. Like, what is it in the history of calming down? No one has ever calmed down from being told to calm down.
Not once. Which we know because as people who tend towards anxiety, who have heard people say to us, just chill out.
Relax. Like, okay, you fixed my life. That's brilliant.
So helpful.
You're a guru. Okay.
Yes. So being able to see, and this, you're right, it becomes this practice that when you're becoming trained and more skillful practicing on the inside,
Yeah.
you can see other people's, particularly their expression or repression of emotion. It's like, oh, I see what's happening here.
Yeah.
Right? You're not a jerk now.
Well,
You're
you
having
kind of
but you're having a moment where boundaries are being violated. And this is, there's a great quote, I think it's Ram Dass, who says, like, when when you squeeze an orange juice comes out, right? When we get squeezed by life, whatever it is that we've been practicing our self-talk, all that interior stuff, it's what comes out. So we're human. When we get squeezed by life, right? And it's like, okay, so there's some anger coming out. Boundary violations have happened. This is one of the best parts of this is what I use the language of emotion. Oh, look what I opened to. Perfect. Anger. So going through the emotions, and there's gifts of each emotion. There's internal questions. And this, I'm not surprised it opened to this page because I reference this a lot. But internal questions of anger, when you're feeling angry, or when you see somebody who's angry, you can ask, what must be protected here? Right? What happened? What boundary got violated? What must be restored? What boundary do we need to put back in place? That's what's happening. That's why people get angry.
Yeah, we added a first question to that, which is,
Oh,
what do I value?
yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. So
What do I
that,
value? Because a lot of
yeah.
people would hear that first, what must be protected, and they literally didn't know that there was a restoration process next.
Yeah.
So we put what must be protected and restored as a second question.
I
So,
like that. What
yeah,
must be valued?
yeah. What do I value? What's important here?
Uh-huh.
And I think that can stop you from going to the everything, everything, everybody. Ah, I'm going to raise this entire town. No, I want to keep the bunnies.
Yeah.
But important? What is valuable to me? What do I value? And then you can say, okay, this relationship, I value it. And that can drive what you do next,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's just about protection. A lot of people can just be like, you know, a boundary with knives and flamethrowers, and you're
Mhm.
protected, but where's the restoration that should follow? Yeah. Yeah.
You had a good anger example earlier. If you're working and you're really in the flow and somebody opens the door and asks you a question, particularly if they're like, hey, what's for dinner? Implication, what are you going to get up and make me for dinner? Right? And you snap at them. Yeah, there is that. What I value right now is my time, my focus, my flow,
Privacy.
my privacy,
Quiet.
and it's been intruded upon.
Yeah.
So you can see it pretty clearly. Of course, this gets back to the appropriateness of emotions. Of course, anger shows up.
Yeah.
We don't need to take anybody's head off. We can just say, hey, hi. I notice what's happening here. I'm displeased. I'm irritated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And work with it in that moment and having a conversation. And again, for all the parents out there, the ripple effect of being able to use this kind of language with our kids and teaching them here's where something like anger or anxiety or jealousy comes from.
Yeah.
This isn't a huge mystery. There's nothing wrong with you because you're feeling what our culture and society have deemed as icky emotions
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Of course you're feeling jealous. Your friend has this, or so and so's doing this at school or got the part in the play or whatever it is. Okay. All right. So let's think about this. Why are you feeling jealous? What are these questions? How can we, right, recover from this? How can we take care of here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every emotion has a purpose, and they're all necessary and vital. Vital to your capacity. I mean, what my favorite what theorist of emotion is Arlie Russell Hochschild, and she calls them a sense, and our most important one,
Yeah.
because they help us make sense of incoming data. Without
Yeah.
our emotions, we can't organize the input. We can't tell if we like something or don't, or if it's feeling, it's how you feel about things. That's the most important thing. That's what's driving all of your behavior. If you don't understand your emotions, you will not understand yourself.
Yeah.
You won't know what's driving you or
Yeah.
how you're making decisions.
Yeah. It's fascinating that, like you said at the very beginning, this is the thing that has been taught and talked and kind of beaten out of us from a very, very young age.
Yeah.
To route around, to avoid, to resist, to find a coping mechanism or distraction from, instead of tuning into and learning about and working with our emotions. Yeah,
Yeah. And kids are so good at it.
they really are.
They have not been trained in the way that adults have.
Right.
And they drop right into it. They understand it right away.
They do.
I remember my niece saying to somebody, I'm frustrated by you right now.
Yes.
Like 3, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated too.
Yes.
It was very clear. I'm like, that's nice. Nice language there.
Right. It's so honest.
Yeah.
It's so honest because yeah, by the time we reach adulthood, and really before that, but for sure by the time we reach adulthood, we're so hell-bent on leaning towards happiness that even when we are frustrated, we're like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Fine is my
Fine. Fine. Whatever. I'm fine. Like, oh, I can't read emotions at all off of that.
What did I hear? Somebody said fine stood for frustrated, irrational, neurotic, and emotional or something.
I
So
heard something different for the frustrated one.
yeah, me too. But that you can imagine editorialize. So this is family friendly. But yes, and it is, yeah, that it's yeah, we're not fine.
Yeah, you're not fine. This is not what fine looks like. I've been to fine.
Yeah. Oh, what
Yeah,
okay, what haven't we touched on? What did I neglect to ask, or where did we not go so far?
I think understanding that anxiety is there to help you, all of your emotions are there to help you, and to look at it as an emotion, its work is focus, motivation, and completion. That's what it comes to do. And its gifts are foresight, focus, task completion, preparation, and a procrastination support system. Procrastination is a perfectly valid way to work with anxiety and motivation, but it is not welcomed or witnessed ever, ever. And I'm a task person, I'm a do-it-aheader. And I thought that procrastinators were lazy
Yeah.
while they weren't doing anything according to me. And then they were lucky when they
Oh,
finished it.
yeah.
And the way that they deal with their anxiety is very different than the way that I and other task oriented people do. So they're deadline oriented. They see the deadline,
Yes.
working at it. So here's like consciousness. They're working at it under here. And then right before the deadline, they get a big whoosh of anxiety. And
Yeah.
then finish the thing, sometimes overnight, right? And then they
Yep.
show up, it's brilliant. A task person, here's consciousness goes task, 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 task.
Yeah.
But that place underneath consciousness is where creativity lives.
Yes.
So if you task too much, you're not going to be very creative. You'll get a lot done, but it'll be like you're on an anxiety train. You're getting a lot done, but for what purpose?
Mm-hmm.
What is the meaning of what you're doing? And so procrastinating is really necessary if you want to do something creative.
Yeah.
But again, you're not going to get a lot of support. So if you're a procrastinator, go get Dr. Mary Lemia's book, What Motivates Getting Things Done. And she has some ideas. So you'll finally be witnessed by somebody and you'll be
Yes.
welcomed into the world of people who are good at motivation. Um,
Yeah.
Procrastinators usually run around with a lot of shame that has been placed on them for the way that they naturally work. And
Right.
it's sad.
It's kind of an arbitrary thing in our society. We have these real made up rules. Procrastinating is one of them. I think people who are we tend to applaud people who are like morning people. It's another kind of arbitrary thing,
Yeah.
right? Of like natural morning people, we're like, oh yeah, they're real go-getters, they're real put together, they're real professional and organized. Night owls kind of get that same laziness.
Yes.
They're partiers, they're just kind of irresponsible, more fun than focus.
Yeah.
There are these arbitrary minefields that we have set up in our society, that yeah, again, the more that we can get conscious around them and take a look at them, it's like this is meaningless.
Yeah.
You
But it has taken on a great deal of meaning, even though it's meaning
absolutely.
its soul, it has damaged so many people who are
Yes.
night owls or procrastinators or who are
Yes.
creative
Yeah.
or who are neurodivergent.
Yes.
That's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of my neurodivergent friends deal with anxiety all the time and panxiety too, because being different is not really acceptable
Right.
in many ways. And
Right.
so if they step out of line, their social life is in danger and
Yes.
maybe their physical life too. So that panic and anxiety, duo with them, it's painful, but there's a reason for it because of our socialization and how, super normative we are. We're like, you've got to be normal, except you're boring. You're boring, but you're safe because you're normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there
Yeah.
is a real, I talk a lot of, teach a couple different mindfulness groups where we talk a lot about that strong urge to belong, and just what you're saying, this, I want to be normal, I want to fit in. I don't want to stand out too much because I want to be a part of the group. I want to be sure that the community doesn't kick me out.
Yeah.
And that
It's dangerous.
it is dangerous.
Dangerous to be shunned.
Yes.
Dangerous. It's socially dangerous. And I guess what I would say to people, if you're a procrastinator and you feel a lot of shame, well, it's because you've been shamed. If you're neurodivergent and you feel anxiety all the time, it's because it is dangerous for you. Instead of, let's fix that panic and anxiety. Let's fix that shame, right? And if you have a lot of anxiety, what is going on with the tasks and deadlines in your life? Instead of, why are you broken and why don't you feel more happiness? It's like that emotion is signaling something very important.
Yes.
And sometimes it's also physiological, right?
Yes.
Especially for people in the change of life, adolescence, menopause, getting older, your hormones can go a little cattywampus.
Yeah.
And your body can identify that as anxiety.
Yes.
Right. I don't know if you know about the number, especially of women who end up in emergency rooms.
Yeah.
Thinking they're having a heart attack when it's anxiety.
Right.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with anxiety, and it never comes up for no reason. And so instead of being like, how can I fix this and get more calm and be more happy? It's like, why don't you listen to the anxiety?
Right.
And be its partner and find out why is it doing that, not just being upset that it is.
Right. And I know, first of all, there's more than a few women listening to this who have been to the ER for panic attacks, for the overwhelming sense that, and this is again, we didn't touch, I wouldn't like circle and highlight and underscore and boldface this, the difference between panic and anxiety, particularly again, for those of us who tend to feel this emotion a lot. These are not interchangeable terms.
Yeah.
They're
If you're
used
an anxiety like
interchangeably.
this,
Right.
how can you tell? You can't even get them apart.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So understanding, and there's almost this, it invites you to really befriend the emotion of anxiety in order to understand it and to see it as a motivating force in your life for good, instead of a problem that needs to be eradicated.
Yeah.
Right. And panic, I use the analogy of like, okay, cars everywhere now come with airbags, thank goodness. Right. And it's a safety feature I think we all want. I hope I don't need to use my airbags, but I like to know that they're there. Same as I love to know that if I'm walking down a dark alley and a bad guy pops out, somehow magically and miraculously, my body will almost instantaneously arm me to fight or flee for my life in a way that it wouldn't if I were sitting on the couch totally safe. It's a feature of the human body that's amazing.
Yeah.
We don't want to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Right?
One of my students said, panic loves you so much that it will do anything to save your life.
Yes.
That's a nice way to look at panic.
So beautiful. Right? And we're so determined to get away from it.
Yeah, I just don't want to feel that. I just don't want to feel that. Like, well, feel it. Your life will change. Everything in your life will change when you can feel it.
Well, and like, what's the alternative? I always ask my students this too. You're here, we're having this conversation. So far, 100% of the time, you have felt it. You don't have to love it. I get it. That some are more comfortable than others. Agreed. I have my preferences too. But there's a big difference between I can't do this. We have to fix this. This has to stop. And I would prefer something else. Difference. And when we get to the point where we recognize that it's like, of course you can feel this. How many times have you felt this before? You're okay.
Yeah.
Right? And something I have people like, particularly with panic, to be able to sit with themselves and say, like, this is what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. This emotion, this is what this feels like. And I'm okay.
Yeah. And it brings me these gifts.
Yes.
You know, fixed attention, absolute stillness, survival genius, right?
Survival genius.
Yeah. It's a fail safe. If anything bad happens, Panis will come deal with it. I got this. And
Thank goodness.
yeah. And I've just learned if I'm feeling any kind of panic, I just stop and go, do your best.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I
Because I
just
mean,
stop and
if
say,
you think
go
of it,
for it.
if we're alive today, our ancestors survived so much horrible stuff.
Oh my
Their
gosh.
panic is honed. Okay, my ancestral panic is honed. I got what? Well, we all did COVID, so we have we have COVID, we have 1918 flu, we have travel, we have war, we have attacks of this, that, and the other thing.
Yes.
Right?
On and
We
on.
have we have the explosion at Pompeii. We got everything.
Yeah.
My panic's got it. It's got this handle. So,
Yeah. Do your best. This is like just practicing with that, right? If panic shows up, if I'm like, okay,
okay,
do your best.
go. Well, you just
Yeah.
see emotion that can have a 5'3" mom lift a truck off of her child.
Come on.
Panic is so powerful. I'm like, you go. Just
Serious.
go. I'm gonna lift a
Far
truck.
be it for me to stand in the way of that.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And we argue so much with the discomfort, right? Which again, I think if we can practice with anger, anxiety, stress, worry, overwhelm, sadness, jealousy, these again, the
Yeah.
negatively valenced emotions. And I have people tell me, I'm like, okay, I want you to explain everything. Pretend I've never heard of anxiety before. I've never been worried before. So it's your job to tell me exactly what it feels like. So why is it so terrible? Tell me everything. And they're like, well, like I just can't stop thinking about it and like my chest gets tight. I'm like, okay, and what else? What else you got? Because I could do that. Doesn't sound great, but I could do that. Well, I mean, it's like they really struggle to convince. It's a hard thing to sell somebody on of like why an emotion is so terrible. Right? It's like, okay, so you could feel that, right? And what if you could feel that? Then what? Then we open up into this world where, yeah, we're working with all of our emotions because none of them are off limits. Yeah. Which turns out is a different way to live your life. By a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I often have a question. Why have we been taught to distrust our emotions? Who's gaining from this? It's certainly not me and you.
Oh, that is an interesting question.
Who wins? We need to follow the money. Who wins when we don't trust and engage with our own emotions, which help us make meaning and save our lives? Who wins?
Yeah.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm just like, yeah, who does win?
Something to get curious about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Benefits from that. Well, advertisers benefit like wild.
Yeah.
Marketers and advertisers,
Yeah.
they try to access our emotions to make us do things.
Oh, of course.
Society, because it's our motivation, I think most ads target our anxiety,
Right.
social anxiety, anxiety about how we're going to look, or anxiety plus jealousy,
Hmm.
anxiety plus envy.
Right.
I think
Right.
our motivation systems are being hacked,
Hmm.
and ads have always done that.
They have.
It's what makes them,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you start seeing the scaffolding of advertising, marketing, social media, the hook of that. Yeah, there's a reason it works.
yeah,
I was, my older son he's going to be driving within the year, and there's things that we talk about a lot of, not only of him driving, just being out and about in the world in a more independent way, right? Of, you know, there are things none of us are old enough to do because our brains are not, we can't avoid getting hooked into things. We can't avoid our emotions, right?
yeah,
What you're saying of, so when somebody sells us something or tells us a compelling narrative, we're never old enough to outsmart that. We can practice with that and we can be aware of it and we can be wise around it. But it's not like, oh, well, at age 25, you don't have to worry about that anymore. So just hold on and then it'll get easier. That's not a thing. The human brain does this.
yeah. Yeah, and I think about all of the elders who've been just hooked into Fox News and MSNBC.
Oh my gosh.
I can't even watch Fox. The emotional manipulation that's going on there, it comes off like as a tidal wave and fire. And I'm like, how can you even be in the presence of this? This is too much for me.
Yes.
Um, it's like, what are you doing? It's so offensive. I mean, it offends against the soul of the person, but it's not just Fox News that does that.
Oh no.
It's
Oh
a,
no.
it's a tremendously manipulative environment that we're in, and people fall for it, hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
They, it's so hard to watch. And if people knew their emotions better, they would not be so open to predation,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
makes us very easy to yank around when we are not aware of the power of
Emotional
emotion.
manipulation,
Yeah.
aggressive emotional manipulation. You see it on Instagram too. You know,
Of
you see it on Facebook
course.
all the time.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And kids are growing up in this environment. And I don't like that at all.
No,
So we need to
no.
give everybody emotional vocabulary lists and be like, what emotions are they trying to get you to feel? Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At
Right.
what level?
At
Yeah.
what level? And can you work with them? Ask the questions, right?
Yeah.
See the gifts of, so that you can integrate this into your life,
Yeah.
not be so. And listen, we've all done the express and repress. I mean, I used to drink at anxiety, and let's just be honest, it works. There was a reason I did that for a while, 15
Yeah.
years or something, of Chardonnay versus anxiety in the moment at the beginning can be pretty effective.
Yeah.
Instagram's a great entertainment,
Yes.
right? Things are enormously distracting in a
Yeah.
fun or yummy or numbing way. So no judgment, simple observation in that, yeah, it works until it doesn't work, because that's how all of this works. And
Yeah.
and taking care of ourselves and really living a fully integrated, aware life. At some point, the invitation will come to say, like, I don't know if this one's working the way that we thought it was.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about what to do with anxiety, which is to ask what brought this feeling forward and what truly needs to get done. And so I'm feeling anxiety, and my questions of channeling are here, and I displace to wine,
Yep.
or I
Yeah,
displace to Instagram, or I displace. And so the anxiety is still there waiting.
it
It's
is.
still waiting for me. And when I come off of the wine or the Instagram, my anxiety will probably go up a level
That's what
because
I
it hasn't been addressed at all.
right.
yeah, I've just displaced away from it to
Right.
whatever I do. And I don't develop any skills.
Mm-mm.
And my anxiety is just alone, trying to be like, I'm trying to help you here,
I'm trying to help you here.
and I've been abandoned.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
happiness is like, good Lord, give it a rest already.
Happiness is gonna make me come and dance like a damn circus pony again.
We've done this before. It didn't work last time.
I don't care how high that hat is with the feather. This is bad working. This is a bad working environment. Okay. And your emotions are like, unionize, please, somebody help us.
It's a real different way of seeing our inner lives and our working with the sometimes uncomfortable, sure, sometimes tricky, sometimes painful things that we feel, but in the most counterintuitive way. I know it opens up a completely different way to live. Yeah.
It really does.
Your
It's
work
worth
has
the trouble.
really just been enormously valuable with all of this. I mean, nobody on who's listening to this, who's been hanging out with me is like, Karla, who? What?
Oh,
Book? The language of emotions, which I talk about and use all the time, which now I know I need to get.
here's
Oh,
the new
tell
one.
us. The new one, okay, is so beautiful. And what's coming in December?
The Language of Emotions workbook. A lot of people get cranky, which means I'm stepping across their boundaries of how long this book is. But it is like the first ever functional approach to emotions that has ever been created by human history. I mean, and thank you. But there's a workbook, I think it's like 90 or 100 pages, so that you can quickly get into it. And I think it's going to do really well, because I know I read sometimes when I see a big book like this, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try two other books that are okay. So the new Language of Emotions workbook is out in December, and it's a write-in workbook, but it has all the emotions and the pages that say here's how to work with the emotion, and then there's activities and exercises to do to key into that emotion.
Wonderful. Well, and I always tell people, don't be daunted by the size of the book, because there are certainly parts of it to read. Um, whole sections and chapters to read. A lot of it you could really use as a reference when you're feeling a certain feeling, then pick it up. Or if you're curious if something is, this is kind of where I tend, this is my wheelhouse. Okay, read about that. You don't necessarily need to read this cover to cover,
Like,
right?
this is the part with the emotions, right?
Yes,
And then this is a part of moving into the emotions in a culture that has repressed our emotions and overwhelmed them for centuries.
for
So
centuries.
I felt like I needed to talk about that. So
I
there's like,
think it warrants a few pages.
yeah, there's a couple of pages you need to go, but you can just jump to the anger bit or the jealousy bit or the sadness or whatever.
Yeah. I tell people to use it in both ways, that yeah, don't, because I also big reader.
Yeah,
You don't necessarily need to feel daunted by like, I've got to read all this. Yes
yeah.
and no, right? Do it in chunks, do it as it comes up. Do where you go. That said, embracing anxiety, which
Little, show, it's so little. See, look how little I can write.
right versus and this one too, I mean, there's a lot of notes and everything in the back. So, I mean, it's still like, here's the book. Here's all the notes and everything, right? But it's so, anybody who experiences a lot of anxiety, one of the things we need to do is better understand this is part of that, naming it, bringing more vocabulary to it, really understanding it, and not just saying it's bad and trying to get away from it. This is that, again, counterintuitive. If you can lean towards it and learn more about it, right? This is enormously helpful where anxiety is concerned. And you kind of joked in the beginning of this one that when you wrote this one it ended up needing its own
Yeah, embracing anxiety is my apology to anxiety for not putting it into the first language of emotions. But we also look at how anxiety engages with 8 different emotions. And
Yes.
I think that is really fun, is to look at anxiety as a member of a functional community instead of just one emotion.
Right. And an outcast at that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody. Yeah.
Right. And for those, this is the other one that I have. The Art of Empathy is another really, again, as we learn to work with our emotions, and become more skillful and more aware and more compassionate about what's going on, curious. This is another really beautiful book and practice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited about the workbook that's coming out in December.
Too. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. And you have cards, I mean, there's more on your website. So tell everybody where they can find you and all the things.
Oh yeah, I'm at karlamclaren.com, or also at empathyacademy.org, where we have a community if you want to come and hang out with people and learn more stuff. We're having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll put links to all of that is in the show notes. So wherever you're listening, you can find Karla's website, and she has a great bookshop and everything there. So you can see everything that's available. So thank you, Karla, so much for your time today and for being willing to talk with us about anxiety and all of our emotions and the gifts.
All of our friends.
All of our friends.
Supporters.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.